I love the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth demo. It was a near-perfect recreation of the calm flashback, and has catapulted hype for Rebirth into the stratosphere. As soon as you play this demo, you will feel that you need this game immediately. It's seriously that good. Everything that they've done with the combat, the characters, everything. It is FF7 at its finest hour, and if you are excited for the launch of this game, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, as this channel has all Final Fantasy VII Rebirth news the absolute moment that it happens. This being said, despite all the love and the praise the demo has gotten, there is one main issue that plagues this demo, and it's an issue that people are worried whether or not it is going to plague the main game. That issue is of course the game's performance mode. Now, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's performance mode runs at a solid 60 frames per second, and throughout my experiences with it, that 60 frames was rock solid. However, there was just one issue. The game's graphics became incredibly blurry whenever you played on performance mode. I'm the type of person that'll almost always take 60 frames per second over higher resolution or just a little bit more fidelity. However, for me personally, that just simply was not the case with this game, as the game gets noticeably more blurry whenever you enter performance mode. It's something that I can tell right away after closing the menu. I literally can't think of another game where the difference between performance mode and graphics mode can be noticed at a single glance. But almost within seconds of seeing it on screen, not even looking at the frame rates, I'm talking about just a screenshot of a character standing still, I could notice that it's blurrier than it would be if it was on graphics mode. Of course, we all know this is what you have to sacrifice in performance mode if you want that 60 frames per second. You don't get that high fidelity. I think we all understand that. But this is a bit more blurry than you'd expect from most other games. Again, it's hard for me to right off the bat think of a game that had the issue this bad. In fact, in many ways, it almost feels sub 1080p, even though it doesn't seem to be outputting below that. It's really hard to say what the exact issue is with the game's performance mode, and if this is necessary to truly get the game running at 60 frames per second. It's also worth noting that on graphics mode, the mode with the highest fidelity, you'll be getting a very solid 30 frames per second with very minimal frame drops, at the very least in the demo. But most people, especially after playing Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, simply cannot go back to the fidelity mode. They want the 60 frames per second to play that incredible combat system in, and who could blame them? And the experts have also weighed in on this. John from Digital Foundry had this to say about the game's performance mode. It has some pretty surprising and serious issues. A lot of Unreal Engine 4 baggage, but also some bizarre design choices in regards to how assets are jammed together. Image quality is not good in performance mode, but at least it runs well, I suppose. He then continues by saying, "What's funny though is that it's 1440p in performance mode, so the resolution isn't the cause for the blurry image. That's caused by other issues." That's even more bizarre because honestly, the game looks like it is running way below 1440p in performance mode. It looks like it is running sub 1080p at times in performance mode. He was then asked how he thinks it compares to Final Fantasy XVI's performance mode. He replied, "XVI's performance mode was terrible, but I think it looks and feels better in quality mode compared to FF7R." That is really damning, especially considering that Final Fantasy XVI's performance mode was incredibly unstable outside of battles, oftentimes never actually hitting 60 frames per second, usually hovering in the 40 to 50 range. Though it was locked 60 inside of battles, the resolution could dip as low as 720p during them. However, unlike Final Fantasy XVI's performance mode, which is still not fixed till this day, thankfully Square Enix has announced that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will be receiving a fix for its performance mode, with them saying, quote, "The update to the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth demo scheduled for February 21st will apply improvements to the visual quality when selecting performance mode from the graphics options. The same improvements will also be applied to the full game. So if you're worried that the game is going to be too blurry whenever you go and play on performance mode, they are actively working on fixing that. I am so glad that they're fixing this. When Final Fantasy VII Remake launched on PlayStation 4, that game also suffered from a number of graphical issues. Things such as low resolution textures and textures that just straight up wouldn't load in. This was falsely attributed attributed to an Unreal Engine bug at the time. And although Unreal Engine is known for having texture streaming issues, that wasn't the issue here. It was later confirmed that they kind of hit a wall in memory, and lowering the texture resolution was one of the ways in which they overcame that. And it was the PlayStation 5's SSD that fixed the texture streaming issues. Final Fantasy VII Remake on PS4 had a lot of rough edges, and I mean that even for a PS4 game at the time. And although none of that was ever patched with the PS4 version, it was at least nice that they released the PS5 integrated version that fixed almost all of those issues. As a result, I can almost never go back to looking at the PS4 version. And I'm also glad that it seems like we're not gonna have to wait for PlayStation 6 in order for Rebirth's issues to be fixed. So I am very happy that the team is doing this. The 21st also isn't just the day when this patch launches, it's also the day when the rest of the demo unlocks. The Junon region of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will become available to explore. This is going to allow people to get a taste for the open world, and what I think will be the part of the demo that sells people on the game even more so than the calm flashback. While this flashback has significant improvements to the battle system, the biggest difference between Remake and Rebirth is definitely the open world. Final Fantasy VII Remake had a ton of tight corridors, didn't let you explore much, and ultimately, as an RPG, in terms of the actual number of locations you could go, places you could explore, and things you could do, the game didn't have much in that way. It's very much the formula that has been laid out post 10, walk forward, cutscene, fight, and I'm not here to criticize that. Some people genuinely do like that formula. However, I personally have longed for exploration, a big, huge Final Fantasy world to return to, and admittedly, even though most of the old games were linear in a sense, their illusion of openness was a lot better than what contemporary FF titles have to offer. To me, what's most exciting is that Final Fantasy is returning to the open world, attempting to do what Final Fantasy XV set out to do, but bigger and hopefully better. And while I know some people say they tire of open worlds, and they prefer more linear structured games, the larger casual audience still loves open world. I remember whenever I was trying to rizz up people on Final Fantasy XVI before it came out, telling them about how exciting the game was going to be and the large-scale icon fights, the response from non-Final Fantasy fans, the first question they almost would always ask me was, is it open world? So there is a large number of people who really do care about this. And while some may tire of open worlds, when you look at the number of open world RPGs and what they sell, there is a huge demand for open world. I also think it's just the perfect way to adapt the world map and the sense of freedom that stepping out on the world map gave you. That is a great choice by the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth developers to make this open world. My excitement for this game is through the roof, knowing that they are fixing one of my little nitpicks, and they are releasing this incredibly exciting demo. Now, I know that many of you are excited for this demo, and that is why I am going to be playing it live on Wednesday the moment that it drops. And at the end of this video, you'll be able to click onto the stream itself, and then I want you to go ahead and hit that notify me button. There will also be a link to it pinned in the top comments, where we will be playing the demo for the first time. This all being said, let me know in the comments below what you think about this patch. And for fun, let me know who you're going to have in your party as your 3-man team in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And I will see you all in the next video.